Former Chief Petty Officer Ryan Torres had lost his right leg below the knee and sustained severe permanent nerve damage to his left hand during a direct action raid in Iraq 18 months ago. An improvised explosive device detonated during breach entry, killing his pointman Petty Officer James Chen instantly and leaving Ryan with catastrophic injuries that ended his 12-year Navy SEAL career at age 36. The Navy had fitted him with a prosthetic leg, following months of healing and rehabilitation, awarded him a Purple Heart and full medical retirement with disability benefits, and sent him home to San Diego with monthly payments and a future he no longer recognized or wanted. Ryan could walk now, awkwardly, with a pronounced limp and chronic phantom limb pain that prescription medication barely touched, despite multiple adjustments to dosage and formulation. Research showed that below-knee amputations typically required 12–18 months for complete rehabilitation, with most patients achieving functional prosthetic use by 6–12 months post-surgery. But functional walking wasn't the same as operational capability. Ryan couldn't run at speed, couldn't execute breach protocols, couldn't conduct operations. The physical identity he'd spent over a decade building died in that Iraqi doorway, along with his teammate. For 18 months, Ryan had existed rather than lived in a one-bedroom apartment, completing physical therapy sessions mechanically, attending mandatory VA appointments he endured in silence, and spending evenings staring at blank walls, wondering why he survived when Petty Officer James Chen didn't. PTSD symptoms in veterans commonly included negative thoughts about oneself, ongoing emotions of fear and guilt, feeling detached from others, loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities, and difficulty experiencing positive emotions. Ryan embodied every documented symptom with devastating completeness. His family called weekly from their home in Arizona. Ryan answered out of obligation, lied mechanically about being fine, and disconnected before they could probe deeper into his emotional state. His former SEAL teammates texted invitations to gatherings and brotherhood events. Ryan ignored them consistently, unable to face the brotherhood when he was no longer physically whole enough to belong. His VA therapist had prescribed antidepressants for major depressive disorder and suggested meaningful activities to counter isolation and provide purpose. Ryan took the pills mechanically and ignored every suggestion about activities. What made Ryan's isolation psychologically complete was the painful absence of his K-9 partner, Havoc, a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois who'd served with Ryan for 2 deployments spanning Iraq and Afghanistan. Havoc hadn't been in Iraq during the IED blast. He was stateside at the time, recovering from a minor paw injury sustained during training. When Ryan was evacuated to Bethesda Naval Hospital for emergency surgery and months of inpatient rehabilitation, Havoc remained in the military working dog program, awaiting handler assignment. The Navy offered adoption once Ryan was medically stable and discharged. Ryan refused with finality that shocked the MWD coordinator. "I can barely walk with this prosthetic," he told them, with barely controlled emotion. "I can't keep up with a working dog who needs runs and operational training. He needs someone who can actually handle him properly." The truth Ryan couldn't voice. Accepting Havoc meant acknowledging he was permanently done being an operator, and acknowledging that felt like final surrender to disability. Ryan's physical therapist, Lieutenant Amanda Walsh, a Navy PT who worked exclusively with wounded special operators at Naval Medical Center San Diego, had been pushing Ryan toward reintegration activities for months. Ryan had declined everything until Amanda made an offer during a particularly difficult session where Ryan's frustration with his prosthetics performance boiled over. "San Diego Military K-9 Rescue needs volunteers," she said carefully. "They rehabilitate military working dogs that washed out of training or got injured and can't work anymore. You just sit with them. That's literally it. No running required. Just presence and understanding of what these dogs have been through." Ryan tried to refuse with his standard excuse about being useless, but Amanda added the detail that broke through his resistance. "They have a Belgian Malinois there right now, 4 years old, washed out of training for severe aggression issues. He's been at the rescue for 8 months. Nobody can safely handle him. He's attacked 3 staff members, destroyed 2 kennels trying to escape, and is scheduled for euthanasia next week because they absolutely cannot place him. His name is Chaos. I thought maybe someone who actually worked with MWDs operationally might see something everyone else is missing." The implication was clear and deliberate. There was a dog about to be killed because his aggression made him unsuitable for any placement. And maybe Ryan, who understood both military dogs and what it felt like when your body catastrophically betrayed you, could offer perspective before the rescue gave up. Against his better judgment, driven by guilt about refusing havoc and by ghosts of partnership he missed desperately, Ryan agreed to one visit. Just once. On a Saturday morning when San Diego weather was perfect and Ryan felt particularly broken by contrast, he drove himself to San Diego Military K-9 Rescue using hand controls installed in his truck to compensate for his prosthetic leg. Walking from the parking lot to the entrance took longer than he wanted. The prosthetic wasn't cooperating properly. His phantom pain was flaring intensely, and he was second-guessing this entire decision. Rescue Director Marcus Webb, a former Marine K-9 handler with 20 years of experience, met him at the door and explained the volunteer program with practiced patience. "We bring dogs to the socialization room. You interact however you're comfortable. If there's genuine connection, that's wonderful. If not, absolutely no pressure. These are dogs that need patience because the military system broke them somehow." Ryan sat in the small room feeling like an imposter. A disabled SEAL who couldn't save his teammate, couldn't keep his K-9 partner, couldn't even walk without obvious limping. The rescue brought 3 dogs first, a German Shepherd with a training injury preventing operational work, a Belgian Malinois with anxiety issues, a Labrador who washed out for insufficient drive. All were undeniably good dogs, none registered with Ryan beyond mechanical observation. Then Marcus returned with a serious, concerned expression. "This next dog is the one Amanda mentioned, Chaos, 4 years old, washed out after biting 2 trainers during certification exercises. He's been here 8 months, and his behavior has deteriorated, not improved. He attacks staff who approach his kennel, destroys everything in reach, can't be near other dogs without extreme aggression. We're euthanizing him in 6 days, but I thought maybe someone who knows what combat-trained MWDs are actually capable of might understand what's happening with him." When they brought Chaos into the room, Ryan immediately understood why the Belgian Malinois was scheduled for euthanasia. Chaos entered muzzled for safety, led by 2 handlers using catch poles for control, body coiled with barely controlled violence. The Malinois was approximately 70 pounds of pure focused aggression, muscles rigid with tension, eyes tracking every movement with tactical precision, teeth visible behind the muzzle, pulling against restraint with intensity that communicated he was seconds from explosion. This wasn't a dog with behavioral issues requiring training adjustment. This was a weapon that learned humans represented threats, and weapons don't discriminate when deployed. The handlers carefully removed Chaos's muzzle using a specialized quick-release mechanism that allowed them to exit rapidly, then retreated and closed the door. The Belgian Malinois immediately moved to the corner farthest from Ryan. Defensive positioning, maintaining maximum distance, growling continuously and low. Marcus's voice came through the observation window intercom. "Don't approach him. Don't make direct eye contact. Just exist in the space. 5 minutes, then we retrieve him safely." Ryan sat on the provided bench, hands visible and non-threatening, making absolutely no sudden movements. He recognized this behavior intimately. He'd seen it in operators with severe PTSD, the hypervigilance and defensive aggression that comes from being hurt so badly you can't trust anything anymore. Ryan didn't try to command or train. He just spoke, voice quiet and honest. "Yeah, I understand completely. They put you in a room with a stranger, took away your muzzle, and told you to be calm. Except everything in your body is screaming that this is a threat situation, and you need to fight or die. I know that feeling intimately. I wake up every morning and my brain says, 'Get up and run,' and my leg says, 'You can't anymore,' and everything feels like catastrophic failure." Ryan continued, not performing for observers, but processing aloud. "They say you're aggressive. Probably because you learned that aggression is how you survive when people hurt you during training or operational scenarios. Fair tactical assessment. I'm angry too. Angry I lost my leg. Angry my teammate died while I survived. Angry I'm sitting in a rescue facility talking to a dog instead of being downrange with my team. But here's the thing. I'm not going to hurt you. See this leg?" Ryan tapped his prosthetic audibly. "I can barely walk across this room. I'm not chasing you. I'm not forcing anything. I'm just here, broken, like you." What happened next shocked everyone watching through the observation window. Chaos stopped growling completely. The Belgian Malinois' body language shifted dramatically from defensive aggression to something entirely different: confusion, cautious assessment, curiosity. Chaos took 2 hesitant steps toward Ryan, then 4 more deliberate steps. Then he was standing 6 feet away, head tilted, studying this human who smelled like fear and pain, but wasn't acting like a threat. Ryan extended his damaged left hand, the one with nerve damage that made fine motor control difficult, palm down, non-threatening, at sitting level. "Completely your call," Ryan said quietly. "Come check me out or don't. I'm not going anywhere fast." Chaos approached slowly and cautiously, sniffed Ryan's hand with focused intensity, and did something Marcus later said he'd never witnessed in 8 months. The Belgian Malinois lay down at Ryan's feet, placed his head on Ryan's boot, the one attached to the prosthetic leg, and closed his eyes. Not sleep, but genuine rest, submission without coercion, trust without force. 2 warriors broken by violence, recognizing each other across the gap between species and understanding that sometimes the most dangerous-looking survivors are just the most honest about their damage. Marcus entered the room slowly and carefully, expecting Chaos to react with his typical aggression toward any movement. The Belgian Malinois raised his head but didn't move from Ryan's feet, didn't growl, just watched with calm assessment. "I've never seen him calm with anyone in 8 months, Marcus said, voice filled with genuine shock. "What did you do?" Ryan's answer was simple and honest. "Nothing special. I just told him I understood what it's like when your body doesn't work the way it's supposed to anymore, and everyone expects you to just adapt." Marcus made an offer that terrified Ryan. "He's scheduled for euthanasia in exactly 6 days. We absolutely cannot place him. He's far too reactive, too dangerous for civilian families or even experienced handlers who've tried. But if you wanted to foster him, give him somewhere to be besides a kennel until we put him down. Maybe with someone who genuinely gets him, he'd show us something we're missing." Ryan's immediate response was refusal. "I can barely take care of myself. I'm disabled. I can't handle an aggressive MWD with my limitations." But Marcus countered with logic Ryan couldn't easily dismiss. "You calmed him in 5 minutes when 8 months of professional intervention by experienced handlers completely failed. Maybe he doesn't need fixing through training protocols. Maybe he just needs someone who isn't afraid of aggression because they understand its fear-wearing armor." Amanda Walsh, who'd driven Ryan here and had been watching through the observation window, added the detail that broke Ryan's resistance. Chaos washed out because he bit trainers during force-on-force scenarios. The subsequent investigation showed the trainers were using excessive force during stress inoculation training, hitting him using shock collars at maximum settings, escalating pain deliberately to build resilience. Chaos learned that humans cause pain, so he started fighting back preemptively. That's not aggression. That's self-defense. You know self-defense, Ryan. Your body fights phantom pain every day, even though the actual threat is gone. Maybe that's what Chaos needs. Someone who understands that surviving doesn't mean you're not still fighting. Ryan looked down at Chaos, still resting with his head on the prosthetic leg like he was guarding something precious. The Belgian Malinois looked back with eyes that held the same exhaustion Ryan saw in his bathroom mirror every morning. 2 weeks trial, Ryan finally said. If he's dangerous toward me, or I genuinely can't manage it, he comes back immediately. And you still euthanize him if placement isn't possible. I'm not giving him false hope. Marcus agreed immediately, profoundly grateful to delay the euthanasia, and genuinely curious whether the connection he'd witnessed could translate outside the controlled environment. Bringing Chaos home transformed Ryan's existence in ways that simultaneously terrified and healed him. The Belgian Malinois was intensely reactive to environmental stimuli, barked aggressively at neighbors, lunged toward windows when people passed, exhibited hypervigilance that physically exhausted both of them. But Chaos never showed aggression toward Ryan. Not when Ryan stumbled with his prosthetic. Not when Ryan dropped items due to nerve damage in his left hand. Not when Ryan had nightmares that woke them both at 300 hours screaming. Instead, Chaos positioned himself protectively, lying beside Ryan's bed at night, maintaining vigilant watch, following him from room to room, maintaining defensive proximity, alert barking at sounds Ryan's partially damaged hearing couldn't always process clearly. Ryan recognized the behavior because he'd exhibited similar patterns during his first months post-injury. Hypervigilance, defensive positioning, complete inability to relax because relaxation meant vulnerability. Chaos wasn't aggressive toward Ryan. He was protecting someone he'd decided was vulnerable and mattered. Ryan began working with Chaos, using techniques he'd learned handling havoc. Calm commands, absolutely consistent routines, rewarding relaxation rather than punishing reactive behavior. Progress was incremental and non-linear. Chaos still barked at strangers, still showed teeth when surprised by sudden movements. But with Ryan, the Belgian Malinois was fundamentally different. Gentle when Ryan struggled with his prosthetic, patient when Ryan moved slowly, almost therapeutic in his constant protective presence. 3 weeks into fostering, something shifted dramatically. Ryan was attempting to navigate stairs at his apartment complex, a task his prosthetic made challenging and his nerve damage made genuinely dangerous because he couldn't feel the handrail grip properly. Halfway down the concrete stairs, Ryan's prosthetic caught on a step edge and he lost balance completely. The fall was inevitable. Concrete stairs, metal railing, gravity and mechanics conspiring again to prove his body didn't work. But before Ryan hit the stairs, chaos was there, positioned his muscular body under Ryan's fall trajectory, absorbed the impact with controlled strength, and braced until Ryan could grab the railing with his functional right hand and recover balance. Ryan sat on the stairs, heart pounding violently, staring at the Belgian Malinois who just functioned as a living crash pad. Chaos wasn't trained for mobility assistance. The dog had simply recognized Ryan was falling and solved the problem using his body as a tool. Over the following weeks, Chaos began exhibiting more assistance behaviors without any formal training. Retrieving items Ryan dropped, alerting to sounds Ryan couldn't hear well due to blast-related hearing damage, positioning himself as a brace when Ryan's prosthetic caused balance issues. It was as if the Belgian Malinois was systematically identifying Ryan's disabilities and compensating for them, not from instruction, but from partnership. The turning point came when Ryan received unexpected notification from the Navy. Havoc, his former K-9 partner, had been retired from active MWD service due to declining performance with his current handler. The MWD coordinator asked if Ryan wanted to reconsider adoption. Havoc completed his service contract successfully, the coordinator explained carefully. But he's not thriving emotionally with the new handler. He's functionally competent but detached. We genuinely think he remembers you. Given that you've successfully fostered Chaos, a dog we were going to euthanize, would you consider taking Havoc too? Ryan's first reaction was the same guilt that made him refuse 18 months ago. I'm disabled. I can't run with him. I can't do the operational work he's trained for. He deserves better than a handler with a prosthetic leg. But the coordinator countered persuasively, Sir, Havoc is 6 years old with over 200 operational hours. He doesn't need someone who can run missions with him anymore. He needs someone who understands what he's been through and can give him a retirement that honors his service. You're that person. And frankly, if you can successfully manage Chaos, a dog 3 experienced handlers couldn't control, you can absolutely handle Havoc. Ryan made a decision that terrified him. Bring Havoc for a meet and greet. I need to see how he reacts to me now, and he needs to meet Chaos. They'll have to coexist peacefully if this happens. The meeting was arranged for the following week at San Diego Military K-9 Rescue's facility. When Havoc arrived, led by his current handler, the Belgian Malinois' reaction shocked everyone present. Havoc pulled free from the lead, moved directly to Ryan, and executed the greeting they'd practiced on every deployment. Sits at Ryan's left side, the one with nerve damage, places one paw on Ryan's leg, and makes direct eye contact, waiting for acknowledgement. The handler was genuinely stunned. He hasn't done that greeting protocol with anyone since you left Bethesda. We thought he'd moved on and forgotten. But Ryan knew better. Havoc didn't move on or forget. The Belgian Malinois had simply waited patiently for his operator to return. The critical test was introducing Havoc to chaos. Everyone expected the supposedly aggressive dog to react to the newcomer with violence. Instead, Chaos approached cautiously, sniffed Havoc thoroughly with focused intensity, and did something that left Marcus speechless. Chaos lay down in a submissive posture, belly partially exposed, head lowered, the universal K-9 signal for "I'm not a threat, you're senior in pack hierarchy." Havoc accepted the submission, sniffed Chaos carefully, and then did something remarkable. Positioned himself on Ryan's right side while Chaos maintained position on the left, creating a balanced support formation like they'd practiced it, though they'd never met before. Two military working dogs, one retired with honor and one washed out in disgrace, flanking a disabled SEAL in coordinated protective positioning that looked exactly like a security detail guarding wounded personnel for extraction. Ryan adopted both dogs. The rescue finalized Chaos's paperwork with a note that Ryan was the only handler who'd ever successfully managed the dog's severe reactivity. The Navy facilitated Havoc's official adoption under the MWD retirement program. Over the following months, Ryan discovered something profound. The dogs weren't charity cases he was saving from euthanasia or retirement. They were operational partners compensating for his disabilities while he provided the understanding and environment they needed to process their trauma. 6 months after bringing Chaos home, Ryan's apartment reflected a man re-engaging with life rather than merely surviving. Walls that had been blank for 18 months now displayed his SEAL trident, photographs from deployments with his team, and a shadow box containing his Purple Heart, not as shrine to what he'd lost, but as tangible evidence of what he'd survived. Havoc and Chaos maintained coordinated positions around Ryan's living space throughout each day. Havoc handled close protection and emotional support. Chaos managed perimeter security and physical assistance when Ryan's prosthetic caused mobility challenges. Ryan had stopped taking antidepressants, not because he was cured of depression, but because the dog's constant demand for walks, feeding, and interaction provided structure and purpose that medication alone couldn't achieve. Ryan began volunteering regularly at San Diego Military K-9 Rescue, working specifically with aggressive and reactive dogs that staff couldn't safely socialize. His methods were deliberately unorthodox. He didn't force interaction or use dominance-based training protocols. He simply existed in spaces with damaged dogs, speaking honestly about his disabilities, his anger, his understanding that aggression was usually fear that learned to bite first. Dogs that experienced handlers couldn't manage began showing measurable progress with Ryan, not because he trained them differently using special techniques, but because he related to them from authentic shared experience rather than clinical distance. Marcus asked Ryan to lead a workshop for other handlers on managing reactive MWDs through trauma-informed approaches. Ryan's first session drew 30 handlers from across California. His opening statement became legendary in the MWD community. "I'm going to tell you something nobody wants to hear. Some of these dogs aren't aggressive because they're bad dogs or poorly bred. They're aggressive because the training system broke them, and they learned aggression keeps them safer than trust. You can't fix that trauma with more dominance-based methods. You fix it by acknowledging you might have contributed to the problem and approaching them like trauma survivors instead of problems requiring correction." Ryan also began mentoring recently disabled veterans through the VA's peer support program. Havoc and Chaos accompanied him to all sessions, their presence demonstrating that disability doesn't end meaningful partnership. It just changes the nature of contribution. One veteran, recently amputated after a vehicle rollover in Syria, asked Ryan the question everyone eventually asked: how do you not give up when you lose the thing that made you who you were? Ryan's answer, refined through months of learning to live rather than just survive, became his standard response. I did give up. For 18 months I existed but didn't live because I thought being disabled meant I was done being useful to anyone. Then I met a dog everyone said was too dangerous to save. He wasn't dangerous. He was defending himself from a world that hurt him. I understood that because I was doing the same thing, just with isolation instead of teeth. Chaos trusted me when I couldn't trust myself. Havoc came back to me even though I'm not the operator he knew. If they can see past disability and trauma, maybe the problem isn't being broken. Maybe it's pretending we're not. 1 year after visiting the shelter, Ryan and Chaos participated in a National Service Dog Conference, demonstrating rehabilitation of aggressive MWDs through trauma-informed handling. Chaos, the Belgian Malinois scheduled for euthanasia for attacking staff, performed controlled obedience sequences and demonstrated the sophisticated mobility assistance behaviors he'd taught himself through observation. When conference attendees asked how Ryan rehabilitated such a dangerous dog, his answer challenged every traditional training assumption. I didn't rehabilitate him using training protocols. I just stopped treating his aggression like a training problem and started treating it like a trauma response to abuse. Chaos was aggressive because humans hurt him deliberately during training, and he learned to hurt them first as self-defense. I have PTSD and chronic pain because an IED took my leg and killed my teammate. We didn't fix each other through therapy or training. We just acknowledged that being broken isn't something to hide or overcome through willpower. It's something to accept and work with honestly. Everything else, the assistance behaviors, the reduced reactivity, the progress, that happened because neither of us had to pretend anymore that we were okay when we weren't. The demonstration ended with Ryan walking across the conference stage, prosthetic leg visible, limp pronounced, with Havoc on his right side and Chaos on his left, both Belgian Malinois maintaining the balanced support formation they'd perfected. When Ryan stumbled slightly on the stage steps, Chaos immediately braced his body under Ryan's weight. When Ryan's left hand shook from nerve damage while holding the microphone, Havoc pressed firmly against his leg, providing proprioceptive grounding. The audience witnessed what Ryan had learned. Disability doesn't disqualify partnership. It just requires different definitions of support and strength. 2 years after that shocking moment in the shelter, Ryan had become a recognized expert in rehabilitating aggressive military working as dogs, consulting for rescue organizations across the country. Havoc and Chaos, both aging now, remained his constant companions and co-therapists when Ryan worked with damaged dogs and disabled veterans. The three of them had helped place 17 formerly unadoptable MWDs with disabled veterans, creating partnerships where mutual brokenness became foundation for mutual support. Ryan also co-founded a non-profit called Broken Together, pairing disabled veterans with reactive military working dogs rejected by traditional placement programs. The organization's mission statement, written by Ryan, reflected his philosophy. Perfect bodies aren't required for meaningful partnership. Perfect understanding is. We pair veterans whose bodies broke with dogs whose trust broke. Together, they prove that brokenness doesn't mean worthless. It just means honest about damage others pretend doesn't exist. 3 years after meeting Chaos, Ryan received an award from the Military Working Dog Foundation for outstanding contribution to MWD welfare. During his acceptance speech, he was asked, "What did the aggressive K-9 do next that shocked everyone?" Ryan's answer became the foundation of a documentary about veteran MWD partnerships. Chaos lay down beside my prosthetic leg and chose to trust me when every experience taught him humans were dangerous. That choice to trust despite trauma shocked everyone watching because we expect broken things to stay broken permanently. We expect aggression to be permanent personality. We expect disability to mean useless. Chaos proved that brokenness is just a starting point, not a destination. Havoc came back to me proving that loyalty doesn't require perfect bodies. Together, they taught me the most important lesson. Warriors don't stop being warriors when their bodies break or their minds carry trauma. They just find different ways to serve, different partners who need them, and different battles where presence matters more than perfection. Being broken together is stronger than being perfect alone. The disabled SEAL who believed his prosthetic leg and nerve damage made him worthless discovered that the most important missions don't require perfect bodies. They require honest recognition of imperfection and willingness to say, "Me too," and that's okay. Let's be broken together until we figure out what comes next. What the aggressive Belgian Malinois did next didn't just shock the shelter staff. It shocked Ryan into understanding that warriors don't stop being warriors when injuries end their operational careers. They just find different battles worth fighting, different partners worth protecting, and different ways to prove that loyalty, courage, and brotherhood don't require intact bodies, just intact hearts willing to acknowledge that being broken together is infinitely stronger than being perfect alone.